Okay, I think we're live. Don't have Archie with me this week, just me on my own. He had something better to do. When I say something better, it involved computer games, so I don't stand much chance. If you're here, say hello. I think I've got a couple of people popping on now. Hello, hello, hello. I was just saying it's just me this week. There's no Archie. Hello, hi. Yeah, no Archie. He had the offer of video games session with his dad, so he's doing that instead. But I'm here. I'm still going to be doing the bake along with you, and we've got some buttercream biscuits this week. So this is a really good one if you do baking and you get loads of leftover buttercream, which, to be honest, if you're anything like me, it's most times I make cupcakes. Then this is the perfect recipe for you. So it's a really good way of using your buttercream and turning them into something yummy. I'll tell you now, just while I'm talking, that I've made up my buttercream already. So if you haven't done, in this recipe we're using 300 grams of buttercream. So for that you just want to whip together 100 grams of unsalted butter to 200 grams of icing sugar. Now whip it up as much as you can. I normally do mine for at least 5 minutes, and the more you whip it, the whiter it goes. Oh, we've got loads of people joining us now. Hello everybody, hello, hello. So I'm just talking about buttercream, saying that if you haven't made it up already and you are baking along, then mine's already made. So it was 100 grams of unsalted butter to 200 grams of icing sugar. Now you can put whatever flavouring you want into these, which is why they're such a good recipe. So whatever flavour you want your biscuits to be, you can either put in some zest if you're doing like a lemon flavour or an orange flavour, just put in a zest from one lemon or one orange, or you can use the bottles that you get. So I only ever do things like this for me and my family. This isn't something I tend to sell as part of my company. So I'm talking to you today as Mummy Baker, I suppose, even though Son Baker isn't here. So yes, I'd normally, I've got vanilla in mine, so mine are just going to be plain vanilla biscuits. My children are quite plain like that. They like plain things. So we're having vanilla biscuits today. But what I thought would be quite nice is if we coloured them in the VE Day colours. So I'm going to be doing, because mine is vanilla buttercream, it's white in colour, which means that it's perfect for putting colour into. I have two different types of colour that I'm using, but any food colouring will work. This one is a Wilton, and I use crimson, which gives a really nice bright red colour. And I've got, oh my goodness, look at how covered this one is. PME, that says under there if you can't see it. PME Sky Blue. Oh, I've just got a message, hang on. Okay, I've got somebody saying that they can't see. Okay, I've got somebody saying that they can't see the live. Can everybody else that's on here see me, or is it an error my end? If you can see me and you can hear me okay, can you just write a little comment just to say that you can hear me? If not, I might try and restart. Or give me a little wave if you can hear me. It says there are 6 of you there. Anybody there? Oh, you're okay? Okay, brilliant. So I've got some people saying that they're okay. So I don't know, maybe it's a signal thing their end. Okay, I've got people saying that they're okay, so hopefully that person can come in and join us again later. I'll keep going then, because there are a few of you saying that it's still okay. And this video will be available still afterwards, so anybody that does miss anything, I'll load it straight after I finish, so you'll be able to catch up as usual. So, nice easy one this week. It's quite a fun one as well, so let's get started. Is everybody ready? Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to be using my mixer today. So I'm going to point you down here so you can see what I'm up to over this way. If you have got an electric whisk, it's a good idea to use it for this recipe, for the start of it anyway. And as I say, I've already whisked up my buttercream. So the first thing I'm going to do, oh, before we do anything else, is preheat the oven. I've got blue all over my fingers already, look. So preheating the oven, you need the oven to be at 170 degrees Celsius, and I'm using my fan oven today. So if you're not using a fan oven, you might want it to be slightly higher, around 175, 180, but I'm using fan oven at 170, so I'm just going to go and set that now. Okay, so the first thing that needs to go into your bowl is the buttercream. If you have just made it, then it should be nice and whipped anyway. But if, like me, you had it pre-made and I've just put mine into the fridge, I've given it a bit of a beat in here to soften it up, but then I'm going to give it a good whisk in my mixer just to get some air and make it nice and fluffy again. So I'm going to pop all of that in now. So that's 300 grams of buttercream. And as I mentioned earlier, you can make this any flavour you want the biscuits to be. So if you want to put a bit of lemon flavouring in, or a bit of zest in, mine are just vanilla. If you are doing the colours for the buttercream, then you just want to think about chocolate, because if you obviously put chocolate powder in, then it's going to turn it brown, so you're not going to get such a good colour if you are doing the colours. So I'm just going to give that a quick whiz up now, and I'm just going to do that on a medium-high speed. So I'm just going to make sure there's none of that on the sides now. The thing with buttercream is, if you use a good unsalted butter for it, then it means that basically the longer you whip it for, the whiter it goes, which is great for our white biscuits, and it's also great for adding colour to, because it gives you a solid base. So just whipped up buttercream in there. So that was the 300 grams of buttercream. Now to that I'm going to crack an egg, and this is where I'd normally have Archie, the master of cracking eggs, but he's not here, so you'll have to put up with me. I'm going to be doing it into, or I'm just using a little teacup, but I crack my eggs into a bowl or a cup or something first, just to check for shell, check that it's a good egg. We like good eggs. And I apologise about all of the food colouring that's just through picking up my bottle, which shows how often I use it. So when you crack an egg, you want to crack on the side, and you want to crack on a flat surface, and it just reduces the chance of getting any shell. So don't worry about doing that hard. And there we go. Lovely egg, no shell. So I'm going to put that straight in with my buttercream now. All of that is in there, and I'm going to give that another really good whisk. Now you do really want to make sure this is whisked in well. So I've made sure all of my buttercream is off of the sides of my bowl. I'm going to put that back into my mixer, and I'm going to be mixing that now. I'll put you back up again. Whoop. I'm going to be mixing that now for a good couple of minutes, and on a faster setting. Or I've got some people saying they're going to be doing this tomorrow. It's a great one for tomorrow, especially if you're doing the VE Day colours. And it looks like at least we'll have the weather for it tomorrow, so that'll be nice. So because there's egg in here, it makes the texture of it start to change, and it almost goes more like a whipped cream, I suppose, like a clotted cream. It's like a nice cream anyway. It does go slightly more yellow because obviously you've got the yolk in there. Now I had lots on the side of my bowl, so I do need to give that another whip in there, just to make sure that all of that egg is throughout the whole of the buttercream. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. You really want to make sure at this stage it's incorporated well. That's a bit better. I'll just get all of that off of my beater as well, because I don't want to leave any of that goodness behind. So off that comes. Right, now we don't need the electric whisk anymore. Just good old-fashioned elbow grease. Okay, so that's all incorporated now. Still just looking a bit like buttercream. But we're going to turn it into some yummy goodness in a second. I'd still love to see pictures of what everybody does, and also if you want to let me know what flavours you do, because I've only really had these in vanilla, so it'd be lovely to hear what the others are like if any of you do decide to do lemon or orange. Okay, so set that to the side for 1 minute. There's so little ingredients for this, I'm really not doing an awful lot of talking today. Or I'm kind of talking, but not so much about what I'm doing. So plain flour is what you want to use for biscuits, simply because when you use self-raising flour, it tends to make things rise, which is the point of it. But if it's biscuits and they're set flat and you use self-raising flour, they do tend to spread a little bit. And with these, we don't really want them to spread. We want them to be the size that they are when we put them in the tin. There will always be some spreadage, if that's even a word, with biscuits anyway, because they go very soft in the oven. But plain flour just means that it's not going to be a puddle in our oven, basically. So plain flour is what I'm using. If you have only got self-raising flour, because I know it's very difficult to get at the moment, that is fine, but you will still be able to get biscuits at the end of it, but it won't be as biscuit-like as it would be if you used plain flour. However, I'm going to be putting a bit of bicarbonate soda in mine. If you're using self-raising flour, just don't put that in. And it means that you're not doubling the rise that it's going to try and give it, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm making sense. Hopefully that does make sense. So if you're using plain flour, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of the bicarbonate of soda. If you're using self-raising flour, then don't pop that in. Okay, so I'm just going to add my teaspoon. And we're using 300 grams of flour today. So I'm just going to mix those in together, just so the bicarb doesn't hit our mix all at once, if that makes sense. So there's only 4 ingredients for these, unless you're adding flavouring. And then basically we're going to mix them all together. So I'm putting my flour and my baking soda into our buttercream and egg mix, and it is just all going in. And you just want to fold that until it's all combined. Might have to get our fingers in there in a minute. It's almost like a pastry this stage. If for some reason you do find yours not sticking like you'd like it to, then you can just add a few drops of milk, but just do that a little bit at a time because you don't want to make these too watery. So I'm just going to get in there with my hands. I have washed my hands before we started this, by the way, just to try and check that texture, because you never really know what it's like. So if you look in here, it's looking quite crummy and crumbly at the moment, but once you start squeezing that and kneading it together with your hands, it gets a lot wetter. Now these might need a little bit of milk, but because I'm adding the colouring to it, which is a liquid, I might see how I go first, because I don't know if you can see, but it's very, very crumbly. But if I give it a good little squeeze, it holds its shape. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so mine is pretty much there. But what I'm going to do while I've still got messy hands, because I'm colouring these in the VE Day colours, let's move that over there so you can see what I'm doing. I've just got a couple of bowls. Now the white ones are going to be kind of biscuit coloured, but I'm going to do my red and my blue in here. So I'm just going to separate these, just so I've got enough for a few biscuits of each. Try and do it roughly equal, never quite does. So these are going to be my white ones. I might add a tiny bit of milk to those ones. But in here, I'm going to do my red. So I'm just going to put in a few drops. Now obviously, excuse my fingers, sorry. This will spread around as it goes. Now you could put the colour in with your buttercream if you're doing them all one colour, which would be a lot easier. But because I'm doing 3 different colours, I have to put it in afterwards. So I'm just going to kind of roughly, I'm just kind of chopping the colour into the biscuit mix. And this will be better when I get my hands in, but I'm conscious that I don't want to do that straight away because I don't want to look like I've been in a massacre. So I'm just kind of spreading the colour around a little bit. I probably need a couple more drops in there. There we go. Right, now I'm going to get in with my hands. And you should be able to start seeing that colour spreading and coming together a lot more. So I'm kind of squidging it and spreading it. And as I say, if you were doing one colour, it would be easier to put it into your buttercream first. But I'm doing it the difficult way today. Plus it's much more fun this way, don't you think? Right, and as you can see, with that extra little bit of liquid, it's gone into much more of a dough, which is what you're after. So I'm going to just keep squeezing that colour through until it looks very even. Maybe I should have done the white biscuits first, that might have made sense, mightn't it? But never mind. As I say, I'm just baking these for my family, so. There we go. Right, that's my red biscuit dough ready. I'm going to wash my hands and then I'm going to dye the blue. What I'd like to know is anybody doing anything tomorrow? I know we can only be with friends and family, which is quite nice actually, but is anybody planning on sitting out in the garden? Or I know Wendy's planning on making these biscuits, so that's always good. So a few drops of colouring. And I'm just going to use the spoon first, just so I don't get it all over my hands. I look like the Red Hulk. Not Iron Man. No, I think you're probably right there, Caleb. I think I am better suited to the Hulk. Means I've got strong muscles though, so that's something. Oh, that happened last time as well. Sorry, everybody. I'm popular today. I'm only ever popular when I'm filming though. Never really happens normally. Right, I'm going to mix a little bit more blue. Am I going to be the blue Hulk after this, Caleb? I think I am. Right, there we go. So it's kind of roughly spread, and I'm going to get in there with my hands now. Whoa. There's something quite therapeutic about this bit. It's like, I like this when I'm making pastry as well. Something nice knowing that we're using the buttercream as well, that otherwise would have been wasted. Such a lovely way to use it and make something yummy. Especially because poor Archie, bless him, he always comes out into the kitchen whenever I'm baking and he's like, for a customer or for me? And usually it's for a customer, so it's quite nice that this time making something for us. Yay, Captain America, that's a good one. We like Captain America. Or as Archie would say, actually, Archie's obsessed with Sonic since watching that film. So maybe Blue's like Sonic. Although to be fair, the English colours for VA Day are very similar to those of, well, in fact exactly the same as Captain America's, aren't they? Okay, so got my blue, got my red, very messy hands again, so I'm going to give these a wash and then I'm going to try and combine my white together, and as I say, if that doesn't quite work we can add a couple of drops of milk. There we go. So set those aside. I'm going to try and do these ones now. Again, I'm just going to start pushing it together like a dough and see if it comes together. Right, mine's still very crumbly even when I'm doing that. So I'm just going to get some milk and add a couple of drops. So just a little bit at a time for doing this, so trust me to get a brand new bottle out. Giving myself extra challenges here. Right, just a little bit at a time. Really don't want to add too much, so I probably added about a teaspoon to that. That's all we're going to need. Just to bring it together and stop it being so crumbly. And in fact, I've probably even added a little bit too much there. So I'd go for half a teaspoon at a time. Just means mine's got a bit soggy, that's all. Which means the next step won't be so easy, but that's fine. We can work with it. Oh, get it all off my fingers. Lovely, and that's coming together now. Okay, so I've got my 3 biscuit doughs. I am going to wash my hands again. That's all I seem to be doing at the minute. Alive of washing my hands. Okay, now, the next thing to do is start turning them into actual biscuits. Now, as you can see here, I have foil on my tray. I wouldn't normally use that, but there were no greaseproof paper anywhere. So I thought I'd show you one of my little hacks. If you've got greaseproof paper, baking paper, parchment paper, anything like that is perfect for biscuits, and you want to line your trays with those. If you can't get baking paper, like me, or greaseproof paper, all I've done is I've lined my tin with tin foil, and then I've got some unsalted butter, and I've just held one side and pushed the butter across, and I've done that across the whole tray. And that's just to give it a light coat so that my biscuits, hopefully, don't stick. So ideally use greaseproof paper here. If you really can't find any, then this is an alternative, although it's not perfect. So with your biscuits, because they are biscuits, they will spread ever so slightly, not as much as the cookies did. Now you could use cookie cutters if you wanted to give them some shape. You can put them in whatever shape you want, but I thought it'd be quite nice. I'm getting a ball, I'm putting it on my baking sheet, and then I'm using a fork, and I'm just going to press a little pattern into it. And those biscuits will spread out slightly, but they'll end up with a nice little pattern on them, which I thought was quite nice. So I'm going to keep doing that as I'm talking to you. I'm going to do all of my white ones first. So I'm just giving them a bit of a squeeze to give them a bit of shape. I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches between them, and then I'm just pressing that fork on for a little pattern. So when these do go into the oven, they're going to be going in for 10 minutes, and they will still be soft like the cookies were if you joined me for that when you bring them out of the oven. So you want to leave them to cool down on your tray for about 10 minutes before you pull them off. And that means that they just have a bit of a chance to harden up and set, and then you wait for them to fully cool once you've pulled them off of your tray. So about 10 minutes in the oven, about 10 minutes cooling, and then put them onto a cooling rack. And then if, like me, you've only got one tray to do your biscuits on, I really need to buy another one. I'm going to try and do these all in the same size, but I just realised I've only got a little bit of this left, so these ones might cook a bit quicker, but never mind. So yeah, if you've only got one tray, then you do need to let these cool first still before removing them. So it just takes a little bit longer to bake them. If you've got lots of trays and you're using a fan oven, then I'm jealous. So I'm just going to keep doing that. That's all of my white mix gone. What should I do next? Blue? Let's go for a bit of blue. Roll in the bowl. Now this is starting to dry already. Try and work a bit quicker. So this is essentially it, folks. I've got a bit of news which I'll tell you about while I'm still finishing off this tray. So news is that I have updated my website, which I'm going to let everybody on my cakes page know about in a couple of days. And it's an official website now. So it was done using Wix before, so it had the whole Wix site, etc. on the end, but I now officially have my own domain, which I've paid for, and so there's none of that spiel. So there's no adverts. I'm going to be keeping up to date with it a lot more often and trying to get my name out there on Google as well. So my website is now www.cakez.org. So if you want to go on and check it out and let me know what you think, that would be fabulous. If I've missed anything on there, do let me know. My mind is a bit like a sieve. Pun intended. There we go. And also I'm now live on Google as well, so I believe you have to have a Google account, but if you could go on to Google, you've just got to type in Cakez with a Z at the top, and oh, I've got lots of people messaging me, sorry. There should just be my profile picture or details at the top. Do check that it's me before you do it. But if you could leave me a review, I would be hugely grateful to you. Just so people could find me online as well as just on Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to pop these in the oven now. As I say, they're going to take about 10 minutes. Whoop. Hello. They're going to take about 10 minutes, and then you want to get them out, let them cool for 10 minutes before you take them off the tray. So I'm going to put my red ones on once I get these ones out. I hope you've enjoyed the Buttercream Biscuit Bake Along. I hope you all have a fabulous BE Day tomorrow. I think it's been 75 years tomorrow. So I'm hoping that when all of this lockdown thing's finished, we can all get out and celebrate that properly. But have a fabulous day tomorrow, everybody. I hope the weather's great for everyone. And take care, stay safe. Thanks for joining me. Bye.